Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. There's currently speculation and accusations that Meghan Markle is a bit lazy and that doesn't like working. And this is possibly because the accusations are saying that when she's done the interviews for her podcast, it wasn't her doing the interviews. They were done by staffers and who went in there and did all the questions and had the conversations. They recorded the responses of the interviewee and then she sat later and just voiced over the questions asked. Now, to be fair, this is quite a common thing and you'll see it, for example, when there's a new film out, for example, and you might have the star of the film sitting there and the camera will be pointing at the star and a production assistant or something will be sitting there asking various questions. And then what will happen is the star will answer these questions and then he's done. He's out. He's gone. But then what they'll do is they'll bring in a whole procession of different affiliates, TV shows, things like that. And they'll put the questioner in the other chair with the camera pointing that way. And then that person will ask the same questions. And then they just give them a copy and they edit it in. And it makes it look as though all these different smaller organisations sat there and asked these questions of this big star. And this big star answered all the same questions many, many times by different people. It's a way of doing it. And it is perfectly normal. I've seen it many a time. I've worked in production and things. So I've seen it many a time when they do this. And also you get a thing called the noddies, which is where you'll get a little in cuts when the interviewee is talking. And it will cut to the interviewer, and it's the interviewer looking, deeply concerned and nodding, as though agreeing with the interviewer. And they're called the noddy shots, and they just intersperse that, so it isn't just the one person kind of thing. So they do all these little production tricks that they do. Now that's all very fine and pleasant if you're doing something big and you've got a big star and whatever. But when you're doing a podcast that you're selling as you interviewing someone, and it turns out you're not interviewing someone, you've faked it, it could be argued that that is fraudulent. And if this is the case, not only will Spotify not pay them any more money for what they've done, but they may demand the money back because it isn't what they paid for. Meghan and Harry could be in deep financial doodah. Because if Spotify think and find out that this is real and that it wasn't Meghan interviewing, they'll want their cash back. Well, have a look at this story. Here goes. So Meghan Markle is accused of faking her interviews for a harassed Spotify podcast. Industry sources claim the Duchess got staff to do the chats with the Archetypes guests and then had the audio of her voice edited into the final episodes. And like I say, this is quite a common thing in production where you've got these various methodology, because you're only going to have one interview, so you only interview the guy once, the star of the show once or whatever, and then you just fill them in. But that is accepted and that's fine, because you're only just then using that as publicity for the said film or whatever it will be. But this isn't this. She's selling this as being an interview with her and her friends for her podcast. It's entirely different. And if it is faked, it's fraud. And if it's fraud, they'll want their money back. Anyway, podcast website Pod News reported that multiple sources had claimed that some of the interviews on Meghan's podcast were done by other staffers. And the same source alleged that the audio recordings of Meghan asking questions was then edited into the final episodes that were streamed on Spotify. And it was revealed last week that Meghan and Prince Harry's £20 million podcast deal with Spotify had been ended in a mutual agreement. They'd been found out. And the one of the directors there of Spotify, he used a term which sums them up perfectly. He called them fucking grifters. And he is not wrong. They want all the money. They want all this lifestyle. They want all, but don't actually do any work because they're lazy bastards. They really are. They just so entitled to go, oh, we'll just give us money. We'll just do this and say, oh, just give us 120 million because that's how it works. You just wander in and say to people, give me £100 million or something. And people go, yeah, sure, because of who you are. No. They want something in return, and your title isn't enough, especially as your title is now meaningless because you don't do a single day's work as a member of the royal family, because you're no longer a member of the royal family. You're a pair of greedy, grasping, money-grubbing nobodies. And everyone in the States is finding this out, and that's why you don't get invited anywhere anymore. All your friends are leaving you, and I use the word friends completely inappropriately. Anyway, Meghan Markle has been accused of faking several interviews for her Axed Archetypes podcast by industry sources who claim that the Duchess had staff members on the show conduct the interviews with her guests, and then before her voice was edited into the final episodes. And the allegations, which come just days after it was revealed the Sussex's $20 million deal with Spotify had been ended by mutual agreement. By mutual agreement is the saving your face part of your shit. Nobody's listening. You're not working hard enough. Piss off. That's what was actually said. It wasn't actually those words, but that's more or less what was said. According to the site, multiple sources have claimed that some interviews on the show were done by other staffers, with audio of the 41-year-old Meghan's questions. 41? Is that what you say? Questions edited in afterwards, although Pod News did not highlight any specific episodes where this may have happened. When you listen, and you can tell, if you do this long enough, if you've been in the game long enough, you can tell. You can tell the click points. You can tell where, like, ambient levels. You can see it. The ambient levels change. They're there. And even if you can't quite hear it with your ears, you can run it through something like Audacity, and you will see the background levels change massively. And that's how you know. And there she is, little faker. Lazy faker. Ain't that true? Anyway, Meghan's 12-episode podcast features a series of high-profile guests during its one-season run, including Mariah Carey, Serena Williams and Mindy Kaling. Have you noticed something, by the way? She only interviews people who are not white. And that's very strange, because for her whole life, she passed herself off as white and only became black when it suited her much later on. All through her young life, her early part of her life, she always passed herself off as white passing and things like that. And never sort of highlighted her heritage in any way, shape or form. And then also when you look at all the men that have had her, they've always been white. Every single one. Never dated a black man. And now all of a sudden, all my friends are not white. Because it's become the thing now. She is an absolute hypocrite when it comes to this. Anyway, Meghan may have interviewed several high-profile guests for the audio show, but this is not the first time that questions have been raised about her input into the interview process for other people who appeared on Archetypes. In August last year, podcast guest Alison Yarrow, a journalist from New York, revealed she didn't actually speak to Meghan when being interviewed for the show, but rather a member of her production company. And that's what happened. Alison, who appeared on an episode of the show called To Be or Not to Be, in which she explored the origin and plague of the word bitch. Don't know why they've put that out there. It's a perfectly acceptable word. She revealed in a social media post shared shortly after her interview was recorded that the chat had taken place with an audio producer called Farah Safafi. Sharing an image of herself in front of a sign for Gimlet, an audio production company, Alison then thanks Farah in the caption for being such an excellent interviewer. And there you go. So it's all fake. Absolutely fake. But then she's all fake. There's nothing real about her. And then she'll do those, I've got to do my sad look. I've got to do my loving look and all that bullshit. It is absolute bullshit. She tries to act her way into pretending to be something she's not. You know, a decent human being. Meghan and Harry reportedly signed a £20 million deal with Spotify for the project in the late 2020, but insiders close to the streaming giant claim the royal couple did not meet the productivity benchmark. In other words, they didn't put the hours in because they're lazy. Lazy, greedy people. The decision to axe the Duchess's female-focused podcast followed reports that Spotify had been engaged in discussions about renewing the series. However, those conversations are understood to have stalled. Yeah, nobody wants them. Nobody wants them. They've become toxic. There was rumours that she was going to go and become the face of Dior, but Dior said no, because Dior wants to stay in business, presumably. WME, the talent agency that recently signed Meghan, told the Wall Street Journal the team behind Architects remain proud of the podcast they created. Blah, 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 blah. What else are they going to say? Bill Simmons, that's the guy. He called them fucking grifters. That's it. And he said also that should have been the name of the podcast that he put out. And it was absolutely fantastic. So it's just going on about what I covered in the video I did about that particular episode of the effing G's, you know. So so they're there. So if it turns out they've all been faked, or any of them have been faked, Spotify will want their money back, because that's not what they paid for. Oh dearie me! Oh whoa! And they've got now she'll have something to moan about how hard her life is. Kiss my arse. Right, I'm coming up. It's always amusing when you watch these entitled, people who think everyone should kowtow to them, should give them everything they want simply because of who they are. Then they get rejections. Then they get, people going no. They hear for the first time in their lives, they hear the word no, and they really don't know how to deal with it. They're quite incapable of dealing with it because it's never been something that's occurred to them before. Only I think they're going to get a lot more no's in future. And she will lose her mind. And once she starts getting a few no's, she'll realise that Harry isn't the sort of person that will open the doors that she needs opened. And I think this will be the beginning of the end of these two. I've always said I reckon that there's about 18 months left. Then he's home. She's got the kids. Mum have a big fight over because who actually owns the children is the king. That's one of those really weird things. But it won't last long because she will not like the idea of people saying no. So she'll have to go up there. But who's going to give her anything now? She's alienating everybody, and she pretends, oh look at this, all that, but it's all false. But actually, it's just plastic people living plastic lives, and we laugh at them because they haven't got a clue. And if it wasn't basically for Daddy's money, they wouldn't be sitting where they are today. And what would he do if he was a normal person in the street? What would he do with his failed third in art? It'd be stacking shells in Asda. That would be it. And even then, he'd have to be supervised because you wouldn't let him work alone, would you? He can't barely read. And as for her, well, he'd have her out working every night, wouldn't he? He'd make a fortune off the back of her. Off her back, anyway. So, that's basically what she is, I think now, anyway. But anyway, we'll leave it there. I do hope Spotify do go after their money and want, all that money back, the money they have given them. That would be nice to see, and then they could fight that as well, and that cost them even more in legal fees. It'd be cracking to watch. Anyway, until next time, stay safe, stay well, let's keep fighting for the truth, and goodbye.